Joining me now is Professor Jason Stanley. He's a professor of philosophy at the University of Toronto, where he focuses on authoritarianism, democracy, and propaganda. He's the author of several books, including Erasing History, How Fascists Rewrite the Past to Control the Future, and How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them. Jason, great to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Great to be back.
Let's talk a couple things here. There's this concept of the state is me. Right? Donald Trump being everywhere and blurring the lines, not really an elected official. He's not a president who's subject to laws and things. He's the state. He is the country. We've seen this in dictatorial regimes all over the world. There's a second part of this in that everything he does that is seemingly illegal, whether it's the ballroom or a no-bid contract for painting the reflecting pool or the arch that's going to be bigger than is legally allowed, or the $250 bill, is a recruitment effort for loyalists. It's a proof point that the law needs to be broken. If you agree to break it for me, I will be good to you. And if you don't, you're out of a job.
Yeah, so this is the personalist regime that Trump has long sought. And the symbols go along with the policy. The symbols are meant to justify the policy. You can't disentangle the symbols we're seeing, the face of Washington, D.C. and the country, from the corruption that's endemic to his regime. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to justify that corruption by personalizing the United States.
Yeah.
If the United States is him, then all the profits, he can enrich himself just like his friend Vladimir Putin has enriched himself. So, you know, he's saying what is good for him is what is good for America. This is just a symbolic justification of the corruption that has so characterized America right now.
So I was talking to your colleague, Tim Snyder, earlier today, and we were talking about Germany in the 30s, in which this type of thing happened. But for a lot of people, they're saying, you know, who cares if his picture's on the national parks thing or on a banner somewhere or on a dollar bill. You said on the radio station WBUR in May, you said, I think Washington, D.C. reminds me of the 1930s in Berlin, except that it's just Trump's face. So I think it's startling when you're in D.C., especially if you've been to the Topography of Terror Museum in Berlin, where they have an exhibition outside that shows you the changes in the streets of Berlin over time. And that's what D.C. looks like to me.
That's exactly right. I mean, my father was in Berlin at the time, and the effect of that change of the streets of Berlin, I mean, he was too young to understand that it was about him, that it was targeted at him. But that's what young children are seeing when they go to D.C. right now. They are having imprinted on their minds the idea that America is Donald Trump. And that's exactly what these symbols are supposed to represent. And we got to take these symbols seriously. Just as the Confederate monuments in the South were a symbolic representation of the legal regime of Jim Crow, so Trump's face everywhere is the symbolic representation of the legal regime that is collapsing into simply a kleptocracy, enriching Trump and his loyalist oligarch friends.
So let's talk about the kleptocracy for a second, because I never thought that I would want to talk about ballrooms or reflecting pools or any of these things, but it's all one big grift. The idea was that the ballroom was supposed to cost $400 million and it wasn't going to cost us a dime, right, which is great because you and me would never be invited anyway. Then it became $1 billion of taxpayer money for safety issues. But now it turns out that the donors who provided the $400 million got something in the range of $50 million in trade-offs, $50 billion in contracts that they otherwise didn't have, or things that were stuck in the regulatory process were suddenly made clear. So it's a trade-off.
This structure that we're seeing is something I call a fascist grouping. You've got to buy off the oligarchs. You've got to buy off the super wealthy. They then support you. Yeah. And then you use that support politically in campaigns to attract the support of people whose livelihoods you're in fact undermining and attacking.
But how does that work? Because how does all this money going between rich people and Donald Trump's family and friends and billionaires, how does this flow down to people who are paying extra for gas because of a war they weren't interested in, who are fighting inflation and having a tough time with their lives and having their health care benefits cut?
Well, it doesn't flow down at all. It doesn't flow. It's not meant to flow down. The thing that the people get who are paying billionaires essentially to destroy their children and grandchildren's lives. The thing they get is culture war meat.
Right.
They get to own the libs.
Yes.
So that's the cash they get. They get to laugh because they know that people on the coasts don't like Donald Trump. They get to own the libs. That's all they get.
Which is a little bit weird, given what the promises were made. He ran on an election to do certain things, particularly around the economy, and he's just not doing it. What do you think about the pushback that we've seen so far? We saw some of it from the courts as it related to the slush fund and the deal to settle the $10 billion claim against the IRS. We're seeing it a little bit in the House and the Senate.
Yeah, I think that this regime has moved too fast. They thought they locked down power. Look, Donald Trump has never tried to broaden his popular support. He hasn't made any effort at all.
Right.
What does that mean?
He's acting like he doesn't really care about about Republicans winning the midterms.
Well, what he's acting like is he's got the midterms locked down by other means. In other words, and we're seeing that, they're already stealing the midterms. So he believes that he doesn't need popular support. That's what we're seeing. It's just utterly logical. So he's just exploring methods to steal the midterms. And they're already stealing the midterms with the help of the oligarchical authoritarian Supreme Court. They're already doing the things that will give them the midterms without popular support. And we should expect to see more of that. I'm not surprised if the Iran war is part of that. He's just keeping open these different options for stealing the midterms. We know he doesn't care about broadening his popular support.
Because remember, the Iran war is an opportunity to actually declare some sort of emergency, particularly if there's some kind of attack that Iran has the capabilities of undertaking. Jason, great to see you, as always. Professor Jason Stanley, professor of philosophy at the University of Toronto.